Nobody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
Alright, so you just started graffiti and you're looking for a name. You're sitting there over your black book and you're like, "No, man, John, you need a name of graffiti." Today is gonna help you with that. So the first thing I want to get out of the way is you cannot have the name of graffiti legend. That is one of the things in graffiti that's like highly taboo. Because number one, it shows that you do not know your history. And number two, it's kind of disrespectful to have the name of a graffiti legend. Understand, all other names are up for grabs. So as the years go on, unfortunately, it seems like this is becoming less of a thing. It seems like people just don't care about old school graffiti legends as much, and people are beginning to forget about those legends. But please, I do recommend learning your history of graffiti and not picking the name of legend out of respect. With that said, not everybody's a legend. Just because somebody's good at graffiti doesn't make them a legend. Just because somebody gets up a lot in your area doesn't make them a legend. And just because somebody has a lot of followers on... Who is texting me? And just because somebody has a lot of followers on social media, that definitely does not make them a legend. Having a lot of followers in graffiti doesn't mean anything. Sure, it's nice for social media's sake, but in graffiti standards, having a lot of followers doesn't mean anything at all. So this does mean that if any of you guys wanted to use the name Grim, which everybody writes that name, then you certainly can. And I'm not gonna give you any grief about it. Why? Because I'm not a legend. It is pretty decent advice to not use the name of somebody who's pretty renowned and isn't the name of somebody from your city or town, or choosing the name of somebody that's massive on social media, even if they're not a legend. It just makes it easier for you in order to make a name for yourself. Now, before anybody goes ahead and asks, "Oh, John, is this person a graffiti legend?" This is the part where you would have to do research in order to study your history. Old school New York legends are typically where you want to go, and just to kind of clear up the fog on this, most of the time when people ask me, is this person a graffiti legend? 99% of the time, it's not a graffiti legend. On that same note though, if you're just starting off in graffiti and you finally found yourself a name, but you Googled it, or you were looking on Instagram, or you came across on YouTube somebody with the same exact name, don't really fret about it too much. This person is on the internet. And remember, it's the internet. It doesn't really play much of a role as far as graffiti is concerned. So they're like halfway across the world. You don't really have to stress about it, because once again, remember, the only names that are off limits are the names of graffiti legends. So moving past all that, you also have something referred to as toy names. Now these are names that are typically used by newer graffiti artists, and names that are really common. More experienced graffiti artists will try to dissuade you from using these names, but in actuality, it really doesn't matter. You can use a toy name if you want to, because it's only toy until you do something with it. Which, yes, that takes time, and yes, you will start off as toy, and sure, it'll take years for you to get out of that toy phase, but once you're out of that toy phase, you'll be able to do something that isn't toy with a name. And as a result, you won't be toy with that name. For example, look at Pose and Pose 2. Pose is a pretty toy name. Everybody uses that name. But Pose and Pose 2 are phenomenal graffiti artists, the both of them. Then you have a name like Grim, which, I mean, anyone who writes that name just sucks. I'm not toy with the name, despite the fact that it is a toy name. Everybody uses it. And the same name with countless names like Psycho, you know, there's a huge list of this, but once again, there's plenty of graffiti artists that use these names, and they are definitely not toy with the name. They are phenomenal graffiti artists. So now that we went over all those things, how do we begin to actually select a name? Well, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. One way is you can be given a name, and you can be passed down a name. Now, being passed down a name is a little bit more rarer in today's day and age, but being given a name is still a little bit common, where, like, you know, maybe you have a nickname from friends or something of that sort. And either one of those works. It's up to you to decide if you want that as a name. So you can certainly choose something like that that maybe describes you or fits you, but it's not necessary. It's just as viable in order to just make up a word. And if you make up the word and you enjoy it, then by all means go ahead and use it. Another method of choosing a name is to write out the entire alphabet. From here you want to select the letters that you enjoy the aesthetic of, you know, that you enjoy doing. And then once you group all those letters together, you can make various words using those letters, so like that you can use one of those names. Now, something in graffiti that a lot of graffiti artists experience is they'll start off graffiti with one specific name, and then over the years, once they're out of the toy phase, once they've gotten comfortable with graffiti, and once they're decent at graffiti, they'll actually drop the name and choose a different one. It's more so them being like, you know, alright, I used this name, it was good for like my training wheels, but now I'm ready for the training wheels to come off, let me go ahead onto my actual, you know, name that I'm going to be using for the rest of my graffiti career. That's certainly pretty common, but it's usually not a premeditated jump. It's usually not something that they're like, alright, I'm gonna start with this name, and then years later, I'm gonna move to this name. It's usually something where they've kind of progressed and they realize that they've outgrown this name, and now it's time to move on. Now, this usually does not continue happening throughout graffiti. Usually usually this is like a thing that happens once, maybe twice, and then you usually stick to your final name. You're not gonna really want to keep jumping names, otherwise you're not gonna be able to get respect and renown with a specific name if you keep switching them all the time. But on that note, I want to stress, do not change your name because you find the one you're doing hard. That is the worst reason to change your name. I can't tell you how many people have been like, "Hi, Grandma, my name is so hard, I can't do it. I'm gonna change it." And it's like, no, stop. It's supposed to be hard. You don't know what you're doing yet. You're still learning. You think just because you're having trouble with this one, you're gonna switch it and magically all your troubles are solved? No, you're gonna have different problems with a different name. Why? Because you still don't know what you're doing, and it takes time to practice that. That's the fun behind graffiti, is learning the ins and outs and learning the science behind your specific name. And then once you get comfortable with that, then you can start really showing your true colors with that name. That's the whole point, is to establish the name. Definitely don't change your name because it's hard. That is by far the worst reason. So that's pretty much how you get a name. Don't really stress it too hard, honestly. Like, in a lot of cases, you kind of stumble into a name. But ladies and gentlemen, check it out. That's it for today's video. Hopefully this helped you out a bunch. Since you guys are watching this video, I assume you want help with graffiti and you're like just new to it. So be sure to watch my playlist on how to do graffiti. It takes you from day one of graffiti and walks you through. And all of those videos cover the basics of graffiti, and we will be coming out with more advanced tutorials soon. So be sure to subscribe for that. You don't want to miss out on it. We come out with 2 videos a week, so once again, we have a lot of good content here for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know in the comments down below and hit the like button. It helps out a bunch. I'll catch you guys in the next one, but until then, peace.